Bloody Sunday occurred on the 21st of November in 1920. 2020 marks the 100th anniversary since 31 people were killed. This was a turning point in the War of Independence. This day would become an important event in the military struggle between the IRA and the British Armed Forces in Ireland at the time. The day began with an Irish Republican Army operation led by Michael Collins. It was to assassinate undercover British agents who were in Dublin at the time. IRA members called to a number of households where they fatally wounded or killed 16 men, most of who were British intelligence officers. Among those who were killed, 5 others were also wounded. Most of the assassinations occurred in South Inner City Dublin, apart from 2 of them which took place at the Gresham Hotel, which was on Sackville Street, now known as O'Connell Street. Collins' statement, which he read out on the morning killings. Collins justified the killings in this way. My one intention was the destruction of the undesirables who continued to make miserable the lives of ordinary decent civilians. I have proof enough to assure myself of the atrocities which this gang of spies and informers have committed. If I had a second motive, it was no more than a feeling such as I would have for a dangerous reptile. By their destruction, the very air is made sweeter. For myself, my conscience is clear. There is no crime in detecting in wartime the spy and the informer. They have destroyed without trial. I have paid them back in their own coin. Later that afternoon, in retaliation, members of the RIC and auxiliary force opened fire on a crowd here watching a Gaelic football match between Tipperary and Dublin, killing or fatally wounding 14 civilians and leaving another 60 injured as well. An article here states that there had been confusion and disagreement about the status of the IRA's victims on the morning of Bloody Sunday. At the time, the British government said that the men killed were either court-martial officers or, in some cases, innocent civilians. Irish revolutionaries, by contrast, were convinced that the IRA's targets were indeed British intelligence officers. In an article in 1972, historian Tom Bowden concluded that the officers shot by the IRA were, in the main, involved in some aspect of British intelligence. Charles Townsend disagreed in a response published in 1979, where he criticised Bowden's work while presenting evidence from the Collins papers to show that several of the 21st November cases were just regular officers. It was at approximately 3:25 p.m. in the afternoon when the first shots rang out here on Jones's Road in Drumcondry. Within a few minutes, 14 people lay dead or were dying. Many others were injured due to the stampede of spectators fleeing in panic. One of the 14 killed was Tipperary's one-time captain, Michael Hogan. Hogan was a known member of the Irish Volunteers and was born in the Grangemockler area of County Tipperary. Michael and Thomas Ryan were the 2 known IRA members on the team, and the night before the match they had heard there was a big job coming off the next day, but they didn't know quite the details of this job. The following morning, Phil Shanahan informed them of the shooting of the British agents that morning. Thomas Ryan claims that Dan Breen had advised both himself and Michael Hogan to return to Tipperary and not to take part in the Dublin match that day. During the match, the Black and Tans entered the stadium and opened fire on the crowd. Tom Ryan, a young spectator from Wexford, went onto the pitch to pray beside the dying Hogan and was then fatally shot himself. The question is, though, who fired first? Controversy has always surrounded who was to blame for the killings in Croke Park, and many historians believe that it was revenge on the events of that morning by Collins's men, the killing of the British agents. The shootings at Croke Park only lasted a matter of minutes, but yet 100 years on, the events of that day are still emotive and controversial. The overall findings of the military inquiry could now be viewed with some suspicion. However, contained within its pages is much new information on the event. 2 military courts later found that the actions carried out by the RIC was without orders and exceeded demands. Major General Boyd, the officer commanding Dublin District, added that the firing on the crowd was carried out without orders, was indiscriminate and unjustifiable, with the exception of the shooting that took place inside the enclosure. This information was suppressed by the British government until the year 2000. The news of the murders at Croke Park made international headlines, but in Britain the killings of the British agents during that morning had received more attention. When the killings of Croke Park were brought up at Westminster in London by Joseph Devlin, he was shouted down and the sitting was suspended. Public opinion in Ireland of the auxiliaries and the Black and Tans quickly turned and gave more support for a Republic government under Eamon de Valera. 100 years later, Bloody Sunday is still remembered, and in honour of Michael Hogan, the player killed during the match, the Gaelic Athletic Association named the stand after him the Hogan Stand.
I can't believe the news today. Oh, I can't close my eyes and make it go away. How long must we sing this song? How long? 'Cause too